Buckle up, folks! Today we're taking you on a thrilling ride down the world's most dangerous roads. From treacherous mountain passes to perilous highways, these roads are not for the faint-hearted. We're talking sheer drops, blind corners, and surfaces that'd make a warthog think twice. These aren't your average Sunday drives, these are roads that separate the Lewis Hamiltons from the, well, let's just say those who prefer a nice cuppa at home. So grab your crash helmets, figuratively of course, unless you're daft enough to attempt these routes, and prepare for a white-knuckle ride as we navigate the 10 most terrifying roads on Earth. Right, you lot. Forget your M25, forget the Autobahn, this is the real deal. The North Youngest Road, affectionately nicknamed Death Road, and for good reason. Imagine a single lane carved into the side of a mountain, sheer drops on one side, rock face on the other. Oh, and did I mention the waterfalls that cascade across the road? Delightful in a car wash. Less so when you're trying not to plummet to your doom. They say this road claims hundreds of lives a year. Now I like a bit of adrenaline as much as the next bloke, but even I'd think twice about taking a Reliant Robin down here. The locals use it though. Trucks, buses, even the odd llama, they all brave this treacherous path. Makes you realize, doesn't it, that what we call dangerous is just another day at the office for some. Still, wouldn't catch me dead driving it. Well, not intentionally anyway. Next up, we're off to the frozen wastelands of Alaska. Now I've driven in some chilly conditions, but this makes the Arctic Circle look like a picnic in the park. The James Dalton Highway, it's not so much a road as it is a frozen river of gravel and ice. Imagine driving on a cheese grater in a blizzard with a bunch of lorries barreling towards you. Oh, and did I mention there's practically nothing out here? No petrol stations, no cafes, no fluffy bunny rabbits, just you, the elements, and the constant fear that your tires might explode in the freezing temperatures? They say this road was built for the toughest of the tough, the oil pipeline workers who braved the Alaskan wilderness. And frankly, I believe it. It's the kind of place that'll chew you up and spit you out without a second thought. So, unless you've got a tank full of antifreeze and nerves of steel, I'd steer clear. Right, forget your fancy machines and tarmac, this next one's a bit different. The Guoliang Tunnel Road in China, a testament to human endeavor, or perhaps sheer lunacy, depending on how you look at it. Imagine this. You need a road to your village, but there's a rather large mountain in the way. What do? Well, if you're these villagers, you grab your chisels and hammers and get carving. This tunnel, carved by hand through the mountainside, is a marvel of engineering, or at least a marvel of something. It's narrow, it's winding, and it has windows carved into the rock face that offer spectacular and terrifying views. One wrong move in here, and you're not just calling the AA, you're calling for a search and rescue team. Still, it's hard not to be impressed by the sheer audacity of it all. It's a road that defies logic, gravity, and probably a few health and safety regulations. But hey, who needs those when you've got a mountain to conquer? Next up, we're off to the land of Kiwis and hobbits, where they apparently like their roads as wild as their landscapes. Buckle up for Skipper's Canyon Road, a route so hairy it'd make a sheepdog nervous. Imagine a narrow, winding ribbon of gravel clinging precariously to the side of a mountain. Now add sheer drops, blind corners, and the occasional mountain goat chucking rocks at your windscreen. Oh, and did I mention there are no guardrails? Nope, just you, the open air, and a very long way down. It's enough to turn your knuckles whiter than a freshly shorn fleece. They say this road was carved out by gold miners back in the day, and frankly, I'm surprised they had time to look for gold between clinging on for dear life. It's the kind of road that makes you question your sanity, your driving skills, and your choice of travel insurance. But hey, at least the views are spectacular, if you dare take your eyes off the road for a second. Right, forget your fancy tarmac and road markings, this next one's for the adventurers, the thrill seekers, and those with a death wish. Welcome to Zoji La Pass in India, a road that's about as forgiving as a hungry tiger. Imagine a narrow, often snow-covered track, snaking its way through the Himalayas, hugging the edge of sheer cliffs and dodging landslides like they're going out of fashion. Add in the odd herd of sheep, a few intrepid motorcyclists, and the occasional truck driver who thinks he's on a racetrack, and you've got yourself a recipe for disaster. They say this road is a vital link between Ladakh and Kashmir, but frankly I'd rather swim through a lake of custard than attempt it in a car. It's the kind of place where one wrong move could send you tumbling down a mountainside faster than you can say altitude sickness. Still, at least the views from the top are breathtaking, assuming you survive long enough to enjoy them. Now I've driven on some pretty impressive roads in my time, but this next one takes the biscuit. The Karakoram Highway, stretching between Pakistan and China, isn't just a road, it's a statement. Imagine driving across the roof of the world, the Himalayas towering above you, glaciers glinting in the distance. It's enough to make you believe in God, or at least, a very talented road crew. But don't be fooled by the beauty, folks, because this road is as unforgiving as a scorned lover. Landslides, avalanches, altitude sickness, it's got the lot. They call it the eighth wonder of the world, and frankly I can see why. It's a testament to human ingenuity, ambition, and perhaps a touch of madness. Would I drive it? Well, let's just say I'd need a very good reason, a very reliable car, and a very large life insurance policy. Right, enough with the pretty scenery and mountain vistas. This next one's not for the faint of heart. The BR-116 in Brazil, also known as the Highway of Death, is about as welcoming as a piranha in a paddling pool. Imagine a road so dangerous, so riddled with accidents, that it's earned itself a nickname like that. This isn't your average traffic jam, folks. This is a highway where death is a constant passenger. Poor maintenance, reckless driving, bandits. It's got all the ingredients for a disaster movie. And the worst part? It's one of the busiest highways in Brazil. They say that driving the BR-116 is a bit like playing Russian roulette with your car. You might make it through unscathed, or you might end up as another statistic. My advice? If you're planning a road trip through Brazil, stick to the scenic routes. Your nerves and your insurance premiums will thank you for it. Now, they say the journey is just as important as the destination. But in the case of Fairy Meadows Road in Pakistan, I'm not so sure. This is a road that tests your mettle, your patience, and your suspension. Imagine a narrow, unpaved track clinging precariously to the side of a mountain, with sheer drops on one side and nothing but thin air on the other. Oh, and did I mention the lack of guardrails? They call it Fairy Meadows because the views at the top are supposedly out of this world. But frankly, you'd have to be touched by fairies to attempt this drive without a healthy dose of fear. Landslides, rock falls, the occasional herd of goats. It's a recipe for disaster, and if the road doesn't get you, the altitude sickness might. Still, there's something to be said for a challenge. And if you're looking for a driving experience that will stay with you long after you've returned the rental car, this might just be it. Right, forget your fancy sat-navs and weather apps. This next one's a gamble even on a good day. The Halsama Highway in the Philippines, where the views are breathtaking, and the driving is, well, breathtakingly terrifying. Imagine a winding mountain road, carved into the side of a mountain, with sheer drops and blind corners galore. Now, add dense fog that rolls in without warning, obscuring the road and everything else within a 5-foot radius. They call it the Mountain Trail of Death, and frankly, I'm not surprised. It's a recipe for disaster, even for experienced drivers. Landslides, rock falls, the occasional bus driver overtaking on a blind bend. It's enough to make you want to take up knitting instead. But hey, if you're feeling lucky or suicidal, the Halsama Highway is waiting. Just don't blame me if you end up driving off the edge of the world. And last but not least, we're off to Transylvania. The land of vampires, werewolves, and roads that are scarier than a garlic-averse bloodsucker. Buckle up for the Transfagorison Highway, a road so epic, so challenging, it'd make Dracula himself proud. Imagine this, hairpin turns that'd make a corkscrew blush, sheer drops that disappear into the Carpathian Mountains, and tunnels that feel longer than a vampire's lifespan. This isn't just a road, it's a test of courage, a test of skill, and a test of whether your brakes are up to the job. It's the kind of road that makes you want to scream with a mixture of terror and exhilaration. They say this road was built by Ceausescu back in the day, probably to impress foreign dignitaries or maybe just to give himself a good scare. Whatever the reason, it's a masterpiece of engineering and lunacy. Would I drive it? Absolutely. But I'd want a car with plenty of horsepower, a good set of tires, and a spare pair of underpants, just in case. And there you have it, the top 10 most dangerous roads in the world. From the treacherous mountain passes of the Himalayas to the fog-choked highways of the Philippines, these roads are not for the faint of heart. We've seen sheer drops, blind corners, and road conditions that would make a tank commander think twice. We've encountered landslides, avalanches, and the occasional rogue goat. Have you ever driven on any of these? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more thrilling content.